Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I wanted to make sure you all got a chance to see this satellite animation from earlier in the week. As it plays back and forth here, what you're watching here is Teddy. This is a once powerful hurricane that moved through the Atlantic and headed up here toward the Canadian Maritimes in the cloud shield, clipping parts of the northeastern United States. What I wanted you to see, if I just kind of pause it here, was that between Teddy and Tropical Storm Beta, there was this very interesting cloud feature. You can see it right here connecting the two systems. And it's just kind of interesting view of our satellite imagery here, simply because it kind of looks like a weird smile in the atmosphere. So as we take a look here, Tropical Storm Beta, of course, has put down a lot of precipitation. As we go back over the last 72 hours, you can see here that through very early this morning, some of our rainfall totals in and around Houston, backing up into this part of Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and parts of Mississippi, we're starting to see some rainfall totals here that are easily topping 6 inches, and there's some locally much heavier amounts. It's been a very slow-moving system, just like Sally was a week ago, and as a result, we are getting some localized flooding here in the lower Mississippi River Valley over in toward this part of Texas. Outside of that, early this morning, we were watching some thunderstorms move through parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and over the last couple of days, with the first push of these troughs coming into the Pacific Northwest, we've seen rainfall that's not only hit this side of the Cascade Mountains, the windward side, but made it over into parts of the Columbia Basin, bringing in some precipitation into this region as well. Now, if we just get a really quick glimpse as to where things are going over the next couple of days, I'm just going to get this started right here early this morning. So this is 6 a.m. So what you can see here is that the scattered showers that were up in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, combined with beta down here, are two main features here once you get kind of east of the Rockies. As we play this forward throughout the day, again, we're going to watch for scattered showers and precipitation here in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. And then we're going to see what's left of beta spread through northern Alabama and right into this part of Tennessee, southern Kentucky, and then eventually over toward the Appalachian Mountains. So as we get through the day here, working our way into this evening, and then into the overnight hours, we can see where that rain from beta is spreading out and our general scattered shower events happening here. Meantime, just off the image here, there is a low that's moving across parts of the northern Canadian prairies. And as it moves there, let's just take a look at how things look early in the morning on Friday. The southern tip of that might be possibly bringing in some showers in North Dakota, Minnesota, southern Manitoba. But you still see beta slowly moving its way off here by the time we get to Friday morning. Meanwhile, another front pushes into the Pacific Northwest, and you can see by Friday midday quite a bit of precipitation here butting up against the Cascade Mountains, and some of that rain potentially again getting into the Columbia Basin here over the rain into the rain shadow over the mountains. But as we play this out for the rest of this animation, working our way into Friday afternoon and evening, it's going to be along the tail end of that low that's moving up here toward the Hudson Bay. We could get some showers and storms again into this same region, and then we'll have scattered precipitation here as we finally let beta exit. Now, with that as our setup, I do want to quickly talk about what we're expecting to get out of beta on its way out, because there's still quite a bit of very heavy precipitation as forecast by the European model. Now, I'm going to be honest, each model tends to have its own solution here as to how much rain could possibly fall in some of these heavier bands. And if you've been watching maybe your favorite weather app or just even model-to-model runs here across parts of the Carolinas, you've seen your rainfall amounts jump around substantially throughout this week as we're trying to figure out where the heaviest rain from beta is going to go through. But this was just the latest look from now till early Sunday morning on what we're expecting in terms of precip. So I want you to watch the radar carefully in these areas and see if any of these bands are going to set up right over top of your location, which could potentially produce quite a bit of very heavy rainfall. Now, the good news is after that, over the next 5 days, we do have a few events taking place globally that are suppressing vertical motion across the Atlantic. And what I mean by that is that I've been looking at satellite imagery, been watching the upper levels of the atmosphere, and we don't see much developing over the next 5 days. So this is kind of a lull in the activity that won't last long, but it's right now we're going to be something that we're going to get to enjoy here. So nothing coming through in the Atlantic. So we got to turn our attention to the Pacific. And this is Typhoon Dolphin right here. Now, this was a couple of days ago, back on the 22nd of September. And I'll be honest, over the last few days, I've been trying to piece together what's causing the jet stream to do what it's about to do to us as we work our way to the end of September and into October. And I think part of that story begins with where Dolphin is going, which is in this direction. Now, we know that typhoons can be disruptive of the Pacific jet stream, and this is going to be one piece of the puzzle in trying to understand what this jet stream is going to do. So what I'd like to show you is a map I've never shown you before. This is an isentropic analysis. Now, what's an isentropic surface? It's a surface in the atmosphere on which entropy is conserved. And why we care about that is because air tends to flow along isentropic surfaces, which means it's trying to conserve its own entropy. Now, why tell you all of that? Well, it gives us an idea where the atmosphere is going to be rising, where it's going to be sinking, in other words, air going up and down, and it also allows us to see the interactions between the troposphere, the layer in which we live in, and the stratosphere, which is above. Now, all of that comes together in this animation, and there's a lot going on here, but you're going to see what I'm talking about. We're going to be watching first a lead feature coming out of the Arctic, cutting here and disrupting the jet stream, which will be very zonal until this event happens. And what I'm going to be careful to watch is to see how it amplifies the jet stream pattern here over the Aleutian Islands, getting into the Gulf of Alaska, because that will have major downstream effects. Now, a moment ago, we were talking about Typhoon Dolphin, and it's right here. And this animation starts on Monday, so we went actually back 72 hours to get this, okay? Now, as I play this forward, I'm going to pause it right here. And what I want to do is I want to show you as we work from Wednesday, yesterday, into Thursday and Friday. The event that we're going to watch first is happening here with this northerly flow along this 330 Kelvin isentropic surface, digging here in through the Bering Sea, cutting into this area. Now, before that happens, the jet stream is going to basically just go straight from, Asia to North America, straight across the Pacific. But the first disrupting feature is going to be this right here, cutting into the Aleutian Islands. And it's going to develop a low here, all right? Now, Dolphin is back here on the back side by the time we get to Saturday evening. And what we're going to watch is for this to come right up over this ridge and flow into this broader trough that's developing, and it's going to reinforce it. So I want you to watch right there, okay? You see these two features coming together. There it is. It's taken a while, but here's our first tropopause fold. This is also what we call a wave break in this large Rossby wave. And look at its downstream effects. You see one here and one there. The atmosphere is getting very meridional, north-south in its movement. And it's going to be reinforced by what was left over from Dolphin. See it right here? This is now next Monday. This is going to come right over and then dig. Here it is again. And get pulled into this trough. Now, why I'm bringing this up is because at this point, Thursday, October the 1st, this is going to give us a very highly amplified flow pattern to the jet stream. It's going to be also relatively long in wavelength, meaning that it's got some staying power. And we need to talk about what that means and where that's going. So here's what I mean. Today, jet stream winds. Look at the Pacific branch of the jet stream, very zonal, west to east. It breaks up here as it gets over into the western United States, but this is what's supporting the heavier rains in the northwest. Now, where we have beta, which is right here, it's going to run around the periphery of this ridge and get pulled, like we said, toward the Carolinas and Virginia. Now, as we go from the jet stream today to the jet stream as it's going to look like as we get to Monday, this is where we've now really established the deeper trough here, the tropopause fold, the break in the Rossby wave, and it pushes a very large ridge over the western United States. But these jet stream winds are quite fast, and they're going to dig into a deep trough by the 28th, 29th, 30th. That's going to go right here across the Great Lakes states, and we have to try to understand what that means in terms of precipitation and our temperature patterns. So I would like to talk first again about what this looks like in terms of troughs and ridges. So you want to see that played out now in some more familiar maps that I show you? Well, here's the first trough that's cutting into the Pacific Northwest, but this flow right here is very zonal across the Pacific Ocean. Well, it plays pretty quickly, but I want to take you now all the way out to Monday. This is where we really establish a deeper trough by Monday into Tuesday morning. And look at this highly amplified flow. See it there? Trough, ridge, trough, ridge. In fact, it looks like that all across the northern hemisphere. I'll give you that expanded view in just a few moments. But you see, with the length of these waves, as I take it out to Thursday, October 1st, getting into Saturday, October 3rd, even going all the way out to Monday, October 5th, we continue to see more troughing here in the models around the Aleutian Islands and Gulf of Alaska, ridging along the west coast, and more troughing here over the east. So this pattern is going to probably stick with us for at least 10 days as we look out here into the future. So getting right on into the precipitation, let's see what we've got, okay? First of all, northwest, this is the precip early today that we're going to be watching coming under the nose of that jet. Here's the scattered precipitation, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and here's beta. As we play this forward, we've already seen what's going to be happening through the next 3 days. So let's get back to here with the European model. Now, working our way into the weekend, that's when we know we expect to see the trough beginning to develop over the Great Lakes states. And as it does that, this is Sunday morning, getting into Sunday afternoon and evening. The feature that I'm most curious about developing will actually be connected to the deeper trough developing here, but taking form down here in parts of Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas. What I'm talking about is that the latest European model on the edge of this large high pressure cell wants to produce a band of precipitation here and lowering atmospheric pressure, such that by Monday morning into the afternoon and evening hours, we end up getting a low pressure system that forms and cuts right through this part of Missouri, going over into southern Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky and Tennessee. So that area right in through there. Now, this particular model run for, again, next Monday night is right now the only run showing this feature. All right, this is not what the GFS is showing. This is, and as a result of that, it lowers our confidence. But I want to tell you something. NOAA's working on and has been working on a new version of the GFS called the GFS Parallel. At this point, it will become operational soon. That model is actually showing this particular event, and that upgrade could be coming very soon to us. So as we work our way through Tuesday next week into Wednesday and Thursday, this is where that deep upper level trough becomes established, and look at the size of this low that develops in this area. There would be the potential, just have to watch out for this, for some strong to severe storms on the southern side of this along a very powerful cold front, and look at how windy the conditions are going to be behind this. Now, as that low cuts through, now just understand the models are highly amplified at this point. Okay, so we got to take this with a grain of salt. But this could be a situation where we get our first big shot at some colder air. And as that pulls on through here, big dominant area of higher atmospheric pressure pulls in to start the month of October. So that's a lot to take in here. I wanted to know if there's good ensemble support for this. So let's take you back to Tuesday. Here's the high that comes in on the backside, and here is, according to the 51-member ECMWF ensemble, the most likely position of the low. But I do want you to notice that the models are trying to bring in something here, which is what you just saw in the operational run as well. One thing is for sure, that after this gets through us next Monday, Tuesday, into Wednesday, higher atmospheric pressure does build in. This certainly brings in some colder air, and it's also going to bring in some much drier air. Let's talk about the winds that's going to be coming in with this first. So this particular map is going to show you accumulating wind gusts. So in other words, it just keeps adding to itself and only shows you the maximum values that have happened up to a certain amount of time. So as I play this forward, it's going to go quite quick. But what I'd like to show you here is that throughout the day, today and tomorrow, our strongest winds are going to be coming out of southern Alberta and Saskatchewan, and then really hitting this part of Montana where we do have fire risk today. As this pattern really begins to become established, this is now Saturday morning, afternoon, and evening, working our way now into Sunday and Monday. Notice how windy the plains become. Very windy conditions in through here. And as we then let this go all the way out into next week, as that low takes shape, look at how strong the winds are expected to be in the northeast, and generally with the contrast of that low and the high on the backside, very windy conditions in the plains in central United States and Great Lakes as well. Great Lake states as well. So this is the pattern that is evolving as we finish September and get into October. So I'm going to show you this in terms of precipitation anomalies. We're going to do it two ways. This is the operational European run. Remember, that low that forms right in through here and tracks into this area is what's responsible for all this precipitation. This is beta, of course, and then here you can see the developing low that we've just been talking about cutting into parts of Ontario. If I look at the ensemble support, again, this is just for the next week, we did start to see the ensemble picking up on that feature. Okay, but certainly it has beta and the developing low in this area. So this will be the area that I'm going to watch most carefully in the forecast trends that are coming up here. And I just made a note down here. This is not reflected well in the GFS or the GFS ensemble, which is the GEFS. So what's interesting is that by day 10, the upper level wave pattern looks very similar in the models. We have a 4-wave pattern. If you see it here, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there's big ridges in between. That's the GFS. The European looks very similar. And because of this, the week 2 precipitation patterns also look quite similar. And that is, as that high pressure builds in here and the atmosphere really kind of dives into a trough, it's in both models, there's a lot of upper level convergence in this area and lower probability of precipitation. We're going to watch here for any tropical development to take place, but that deeper trough over the east is what's going to kick systems away from the east coast and this Gulf Coast of the United States. So that's our precipitation patterns. Watch these temperatures. Ready? We're going to look at high temperatures first, and we're going to focus on the departure from normal. So cloud cover down here today from beta, keeping it cool. Big rebound of warmth in the midsection of the country, even stretching into the northeast. But with the trough cutting into the northwest, that's why you got the cooler pattern there. Let's go from Thursday into Friday, and from Friday into Saturday. Broad warm up in the midsection of the country. Beta moves out, and we get a recovery in temperatures. But as we go from Saturday into Sunday, now watch, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's when the trough becomes established. We see the heat rebounding back west. And the National Digital Forecast Database has been putting temperatures in the Central Valley of California back up into the upper 90s here. And we can see that high temperatures next Wednesday on the 30th may be in the Great Lakes states struggling to get out of the 50s and 60s. So this is some pretty chilly air. The question is going to be, do we have risk of a frost as we begin the month of October? And right now the GFS is the most aggressive at possibly bringing in frost here in and around the Great Lakes states where that trough sets up October 1st through the 3rd. And that's what the map in the background is showing you here. The European model is not showing that. And just to kind of put a point to this, this is the GFS ensemble for days 5 through 10, and this is the European. And what we notice here is that while they have the same pattern, the GFS is much more amplified and therefore brings in a greater anomalous temperature. That's what we're seeing. And that's lasting all the way out to days 10 through 15. Once again, we see that the GFS is cooler here and warmer there than the European model is over on the right. But the patterns are very, very similar. So that's what this upcoming event that I talked about in the Pacific is going to be bringing to us. Globally, as we finish this up, that same waviness in the jet stream is going to impact Europe. And over the next couple of days, deep troughs cutting in through here into parts of the British Isles, getting into parts of France, go over towards Germany. And we're going to be seeing troughs like this sweep through much of Central Europe, but persistent ridging here coming up through the Russian wheat belt. Now, why we discussed this is that's going to keep overall over the next 10 days a warmer pattern north of the Black Sea with a lot cooler weather in this part of Europe. But the trough sweeping through here, very unsettled precipitation, and it's finally bringing precipitation across Ukraine back above normal as we stretch this out through the next 10 days. But it's going to be dry in this part of the Russian wheat belt, and that's where we got our problems. You see, going back over the last 45 days, in this part of Ukraine, getting over into the southern Russian wheat belt, some places in there have seen between 0 and 30% of normal rainfall. And this is critical for the winter wheat planting in that area. Please keep that in mind. Elsewhere, I want to thank Arlen Suderman for posting this picture from Cordoba. Remember, we do grow wheat in South America, and apparently earlier this week, there was some frost damage that was down near Cordoba. Now, we often think about this as being a big soybean producing area, but we can see some damage here to the wheat crop in the pictures that Arlen tweeted out for us on Monday of this week. So thank you for sending us those images. But from here, what I want to talk about is what's going on with the Brazilian monsoon. So we're going to go back to the 17th and watch this last week. Now, this is a satellite-derived product, so some of the flashes you're seeing here may look as though the monsoon has returned to its normal strength, but remember, this is coming from cloud top temperatures and a couple of radar-based sensors that are on some of our satellites. But overall, the precipitation amounts here have been just scattered, and that's what we'd expect to see the monsoon begin. Now, why I bring this up is that the operational European over the next 10 days still has this area here. This is going to be much of Mato Grosso do Sul, getting over toward Bahia, the Tocantins, that area dry. Toward the end of this 10-day time period, very wet in parts of southern Brazil, including Rio Grande do Sul down to Uruguay, and then parts of Argentina as well, picking up on some heavier precipitation. As we stretch this out, though, and look again at the latest European weekly forecast, this will be from September 21st to October 21st. We don't see an aggressive start to the monsoon at this point in Brazil. So there will be rain, but not an aggressive start. Now, I want to make sure that I have not exaggerated a point here, okay? Critical early rains are great for allowing for a fast planting pace for soybeans in Brazil, but the majority of the planting of soybeans, the first crop soybeans, happens in the month of October and into early November. So if we continue to see this drier pattern lasting through the middle and end of October, that's when we're going to start to see, I think, a pretty big reaction due to the late planting of this first crop of soybeans. So we'll just watch it, keep an eye on it together, okay? Thanks for your attention this week. I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you.